It's a brand new day. Hey. Wake up every morning and say, it's a brand new day. Hey. Take a good day, make it great, okay? Cause if you got some lemons, make some lemonade. Yeah, taste those clouds away.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Garden Diaries. We're so happy that you're here. If you haven't already started following us on social media, we'd love for you to do that. And also, wherever you get your podcast from, go ahead and give us a like or a share. We totally would appreciate that. We're here with another episode, and we're super excited about today's guest. I always say that, but I feel like we wouldn't ask anyone on here that we weren't excited about. But we are very excited to have you. Megan, do you want to introduce our beautiful guest?
Absolutely. This is Lauren Ashley.
Hi.
Before I have you say a little bit about yourself, I'm just going to plug in. I've known Lauren since you were 12, 12 or 13. Fun fact, she worked at the summer camp that Zach and I met at, and she was the babysitter of the staff kids.
I love that.
And when we moved here, when Zach and I got married and moved here, I had not seen you in 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
And we were at Cece's Pizza, and she said, we made eye contact, and I was like, what are you doing here? And she was like,
We didn't even say hi. It was just like, why are you here?
and she's like, what are you doing here? And she had moved down here at the same time. So it was crazy. And now she's been my baby's babysitter. And now she has a baby.
Where are you from?
I'm from Georgia. I'm from 30 minutes from where the camp was. So I grew up around it. The babysitter I had when I was younger worked there. And then I just started showing up because I was bored. And I was like, oh, I'll just watch all the kids because they're kind of lunatics. They really were. So I was like, hey, I'll just
She kept those kids in order.
Yeah. I was like,
And
welcome
alive.
to boot camp. And then I actually was on staff for a few years.
Oh.
And then I came here to go to college. And I didn't know she was here. And
Did she go to college where you worked at? Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
Yeah.
she was my boss.
Yeah.
And Zach was my boss at one point.
What?
I know. Literally, it's
Mind
crazy how, God just made everything happen for our lives to reconnect. And I am so thankful he did. So, Lauren, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, besides knowing me.
Yes, so I'm from Georgia. So the accent kind of slips out every now and then, but I've been in Florida long enough where people kind of talk the same way too. So if I say something that sounds really country, just ignore that and move on.
Okay.
I did have a baby last year. I've been married for 3.5 years. This is super random, but I graduated from college with a degree in sports and have not done anything with my degree.
Okay.
But
Same.
my excuse is I graduated in December of 19, and then COVID happened 3 months later. So I kind of had to just make do and get a paycheck. But yeah, there's not too much that's super interesting. She knows a lot more.
I do know
stuff.
quite a bit.
Don't you have a degree that you don't use either?
Mine is Bible, so I'd definitely be using
Why did
it right now.
I hope you use that degree.
I thought you were art.
So I originally...
Okay, thank you. I'm not crazy. Whoa.
I originally went to college for art education, then I switched to studio art, and then God led me elsewhere. I genuinely thought camp ministry was going to be my life. And his ministry changed for me, but it's theology is my degree with
Gotcha.
a certificate in counseling.
Okay. And mine is pre-law, so mine is poli-sci. So I have a bachelor's degree in political science with a minor in history. So I don't use any of that though.
Yeah.
I sling coffee, so
I do branding for real estate.
God has a way of
But I feel like you can say your coffee's biblical coffee.
That's right.
Though. So I mean, technically,
It's made with Jesus love.
yeah.
it is filtered through holy water. Just kidding, guys. Just kidding. Anyways, before we get to
Blessed by.
okay, so we like to start off with some fun questions, just to kind of break the ice, get you feeling all, just to laugh together, and then before we get into the serious stuff. So, Brittany, what's one of your questions?
So I was really pondering asking you questions because I have not met you personally, but I did hear a little bit of your testimony at a small group event that I went to here at the church. Yes. I think y'all shared it via video about your son. So I've heard a little smidgen. So I don't know much about you. So I was like, I can't ask her like these off the wall questions and her think I'm crazy.
Oh, no.
So my first one is, if you could wear only one pair of shoes for the rest of your life, what would they be?
Oh, that's a hard one because she's a shoe girl.
I didn't used to be. I used to just wear the like $5 sandals from Walmart, or like the Walmart like tennis shoes, because I like couldn't afford anything else. And then I married my husband, who was like shoe fanatic, and so I kind of became that a little bit. Honestly, I would probably say Air Forces. Like, they're just, I love Jordan 1s. Like, that's one of the only Jordans I really like, but Air Forces are so like universal, like with everything, and they're actually pretty comfy. So I still like my sandals, and I still like tennis shoes and stuff, but probably Air Forces. So
She's way cooler than me. I don't.
Oh, her shoe game's strong.
yeah.
I got some Vans.
The top of our closet, like, we keep all the boxes to our shoes. Like, that's just what you do.
Ooh,
you know.
Okay.
It's like 70% full. Like, it's just empty shoe boxes. So
Hey, babe, we need to step our shoe game up because I'm feeling left out over here. Okay.
I would not recommend. It's a very expensive habit, and we've turned our son into that. He has like 12 pairs of like Jordans or Forces or Dunks, like, and he's 14 months and doesn't wear them at all.
Okay.
So
I mean, I like it,
wouldn't.
though.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, but it's fun. Like,
But he's styling.
oh yeah,
He rocking
yeah.
those kicks.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's what matters. Like, as long as he looks good, I don't really care about the rest.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. I like it. See? I like this already. This is great.
All right. What is one of your top 5 things on your bucket list? Just one. You don't have to name 5.
Okay, I really want to go to Europe.
Oh.
I hate planes and boats, so I don't know how I'm going to get there. Maybe just like the Holy Spirit.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, God can do anything. So I'm going to get there. I'm just not really sure how. But yeah, like a tour of Europe, like literally, I don't know. It's just so pretty. Like, everything looks so fancy and like clean. And Pensacola is not that way. So I just kind of want to go there.
Pensacola is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
The beach, at least.
Yeah.
However, we've been watching the Olympics and they're doing like little shots of like Paris and those
Yeah.
little like street eateries. And I looked at my
Yes.
husband and I was like, when are you taking me to eat croissants?
Yeah.
Because that's where I want to go. I want to
Yeah.
eat some croissants.
That same, like, I had a croissant at Panera today, and I was just like, it'd be better if I was sitting on, like, you know, the Seine in Paris.
With
and,
my
like,
pinky up and my
Yeah.
tea. Yes.
with a tea that I don't drink, like, just to look good.
Look the part.
Yes. Yes. Let's do
And
it.
they just seem like they have clean air. Like, you like smelling the air, like, when it rains. That's what I feel like it smells like, and I love that smell. That's super weird. But I just want to smell clean air all the time.
I like that. I like the smell
Yeah.
of gasoline. That's weird.
Ooh.
Yeah. Like when you go to the gas station, like that's one of my favorite smells. Like I'll roll down the window to smell it.
I don't like that, but I still consider myself a new mom, so I love the smell of baby diapers. And this one's really awkward.
Okay.
So we're kind of getting in deep already, but when my baby throws up and it's like on his shirt, I don't know what it is, but it doesn't smell like throw up to me. Like it smell like, I don't know.
Spit up. It's like spit
Yeah,
up. Yeah.
it's not like a, yeah.
We're not talking like chunks.
No.
Yeah, we're
it's just
talking
like
like
the little
little-
stuff that
yeah.
comes out of his mouth, and I'm just like,
Probably because it has some of like your DNA in it. Like I feel like
Probably.
you're wired to like I think all babies smell.
My DNA don't smell good.
I mean, I don't know.
I'm sorry that your DNA doesn't smell good. That sounds like a personal
I've
problem.
never had this experience with my children. I was like, oh, I gotta change you.
I love to smell my kids when they first wake up. Like when they
Yeah.
first wake up in the morning, like they smell like their authentic self, and like
Yeah.
there's just a smell about them. I agree.
I don't mean my baby's like number 1 and number 2 diapers. I mean like a clean diaper out of the pack. I'm not talking about like, stuff in it. Yeah,
Girl,
no.
you smell like your authentic self right now. Let me sniff you.
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm so glad that somebody else understands what I'm saying. I need to phone in my friend and my husband. Mike, do you like the smell of our kids?
He's nodding no.
There's just something about it. Like everybody has their own smell. Okay, can you
Yeah.
agree with that?
Yeah.
So like there's some people that just like smell good.
Yeah.
And I think like when they're your own children and you made those babies, like they smell like
It's kind of like newborn smell.
yeah,
Like he has a distinct smell, and like even if he like has spit up or like something, like it's just like I can still smell what he smells like, because
100%.
like that's like, not to get weird, but like that's kind of all I had for a little bit in the beginning, and so like when I smell it, it's just like it's a peaceful thing for me. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
I mean, I think I'm just weird. I guess I don't know.
I just douse myself in like body spray all the time, so I don't even know what I smell.
You don't know your true authentic smell.
I think I think you have a good authentic smell.
Yeah.
I've never.
I'm so glad you just changed my whole world, because I have a fear of stinking.
No, like I mean, we've known each other for what, like 15 plus years. Like you've never smelled bad ever.
Deodorant and body spray. Anyways, we're gonna move on.
Okay.
How
How did we even get on this topic? How did this?
whose question are we on? What was your question? How
Your
did we
bucket
get
list. Oh, that's
Europe,
on.
Paris,
smelling
fresh
clean
air.
air? Okay, your turn. Your turn.
Circle it back. One item that you could not live without.
Okay, not including like my husband or kid. I don't know. Like I really don't care about like. I don't need to have like makeup. Like I don't know. I'm just not like a super tangible. I mean, maybe. I really have no answer for that, because I there's nothing that I'm just like obsessed with that I was like, if there was only one thing I could grab, like I wouldn't really.
Yeah.
Like my husband and my kid is kind of just like.
What about food?
Back to the croissants.
Well, yeah.
See where that led us last time. Let's go back.
See, I probably would have had an answer for you before having a kid, but like now it's just like whatever I can make in the 32 seconds I have to like fix myself something. So before I was like pretty obsessed with like wings or like a good pizza or something like that, but I just am. It's just really whatever I can grab a hold of nowadays.
That's good.
I do love coffee, and you kind of got me on that. So
You're welcome.
Kel loves that about you.
Pretty great person. What can I
Yeah.
say?
he's like, I don't even think you like coffee. You just like drinking it. And I was like, okay.
And your point.
And
Right.
yeah.
Maybe that's what you smell like, coffee. Maybe that's your true authentic smell.
I do, and sometimes I feel I am overwhelmingly smelling like coffee, so I have to shower and get it off. I love the smell, but not like all the time. Anyways, let's move on. What would you do with your 15 minutes of fame? Not including right now.
Honestly, okay, this is getting kind of deep again, but if I had like 15 minutes where like everybody knew me, or like I was famous, or like I could say anything to people, it would genuinely be like, just stop being so selfish, stop being so mean to other people, like which I guess is kind of bullying, but just I have a different perspective of life nowadays. And so even if I'm just like driving in my neighborhood and somebody's on the wrong side of the road, even though that's not technically like a one side, whatever, I'm just like, yeah, but if you thought ahead a little bit, like what if randomly somebody was coming down like super fast and you couldn't get out of the way and quick enough, and like you caused a wreck, and like, and not just because of my own, experience, but just like, I don't know, I that might not make any sense at all, but I think just stop trying to attack people all the time. It's okay to be different. It's okay to think different. It's okay to, be a different person, because we're all different. But that doesn't mean you have to be rude, mean, crude, angry, like to people all the time. So I don't want to be famous. So I'm glad that that's not like an issue. But it would genuinely just be to like have friends, like be nice. Like it doesn't cost anything to be nice, but you have no idea what other people are going through at all. And you making a small comment that might be nothing to you could be a lot to somebody else. Like it could be the straw, like for somebody else. So just get along. Like it's not that hard.
That's good. No, I like that. What's the weirdest gift you've ever received?
I haven't really ever gotten anything weird, like outside of like, you can take this out if you need to, but like outside of like stuff you get for your wedding, or whatever, like the events surrounding that. Like I've never really gotten anything super weird that I was like, thanks, I'm gonna go trash this. Like I'm not even gonna return it. Like I'm just gonna trash it. I've never really gotten anything like super weird like that.
So Mike gets a lot of really awesome gifts. Lots of people like clean out their houses sometimes, and they're like, "Oh, I think you would really like this." So we inherit a lot of really great things, and like you can tell they're like really loved, and they've been like passed down. So that's where that came from, because I was just thinking like people give Mike some cool things.
What's the weirdest thing?
I can't say it on here because the person might be listening, and I don't want them to think that it was weird. It was very well loved, and he appreciated it. That's what I'm gonna say.
All right, last question.
Okay.
If you could get a boat or a yacht, what
She
would you
doesn't like boats.
Yeah.
If he liked boats. Okay. I can't help I didn't know this piece of information before I had this question. What would you call it?
Yeah, I haven't had time to think this through because that's just not something that's going to be a part of my life. So, man, y'all got really good questions. I don't know. I guess I'm going to have to do a lot more like life searching. I need to have plans. Apparently, I'm not
You
prepared.
may inherit a boat one
Yeah.
day, and you may need to name it. So,
What's your boat's name gonna be?
I have not thought about this either.
I don't know what a boat's name would be, but y'all's podcast a few weeks ago where you were talking about DJ
Percy.
names.
Oh,
I would be DJ LA.
Oh yeah, see,
That's pretty good.
That is
you
really
can't
good.
lie.
yeah,
that's real good.
Yeah.
You say Prissy?
Percy.
Oh, I thought you said Prissy, like Zach's sister.
I mean, I love her,
Yeah.
but not naming a boat after her. No, like like Percy Jackson. Isn't that a movie? Zach likes that movie, and I just feel like that's a good boat name.
I think something has to go along with that though. It can't just be Percy.
Yeah.
Percy
The second, the fourth.
Thor.
What?
Okay.
God of Thunder.
Maybe we all need to do a little more live searching because we obviously, if somebody just randomly gets
I
us a
have
boat.
one.
Okay, what's your boat name?
Neptune's Corner.
Okay, we're gonna do some searching. I don't think any of these will work.
Neptune, isn't that?
A planet.
Yeah, so that's in there. That's out there, not down here.
Nautical Brittany.
But I think Neptune
money
is
would be-
something.
It's something.
I think it's-
Neptune has something to do with the sea too, right?
Oh.
Sure,
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. I don't know.
I don't know what's going on. I have no
Megan
idea.
is in La La Land over here today.
No, somebody was trying to say something and I can't read lips. Okay. Okay. So obviously we have fun questions to kind of break the ice and just let people just see that we can have fun. But now we want to kind of get into your story and something that where God has moved in your life, worked in your life, and I know that over this last year there's been a lot that has happened. And so would you mind sharing what God's been doing in your life?
Of course. So I'll try to make it like the short version, but I will give more detail here than what's just kind of out there. So last May, I was laid off from a job, super unexpected, very random. I was 7 months pregnant. I lost PTO, FMLA. I lost obviously paycheck, insurance. I was in a really dark place even when that just happened. And I couldn't do anything like to the company or whatever just because it was technically a valid layoff. So I couldn't even try to keep my insurance or anything. And if I did, it was like 5 times as much as what I was paying. So anyway, within, that was in the end of May, like in the middle end of May. 2 weeks later was when I was in my car accident. During that 2 weeks, I had been applying for jobs. I was like, I have to get something. I realize I'm 7 months pregnant, but I have to have insurance. Like, I can't be without insurance. So I was trying to get a job. Even if it was a part-time, I was just trying to get something so I could have insurance for at least when I were to give birth in August. Well, I went to a job interview on Friday, June 2nd, and on the way, I was essentially T-boned. like I wasn't at a red light, I wasn't stopped. I was just like actively driving. There was no, like it shouldn't have been a place where an accident occurred, but it did. So I was T-boned. I looked down. I was kind of freaked out at first because I didn't realize like I was in an accident. I was kind of blurry. Like I just didn't realize what had gone on. So it took a little bit for me to see that had actually occurred. And then I saw I was like up in a parking lot. Like I wasn't on the road anymore. Like I was in a parking lot. I was still in my car, but I was like fully in a parking lot. And then I was like, okay, I guess I just got hit. And then I saw some blood, and I was like, okay, this is like escalating really quickly. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I'm trying to call my husband because I had no idea really where I was to be able to tell 911. So I called him. He was at work like 5 minutes down the road. And I was like, I was in an accident. I get here right now. I sent him my location, and that was it. I realized I had a broken arm when I looked, and my arm was not straight anymore. It was like concaved in. And so I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to be having surgery, but I'm trying my best to stay calm just because I was like, I'm pregnant and I can't get stressed. Like that's going to cause some other issues. So I'm trying to like make myself breathe. Nobody's really shown up yet. My husband was the first one there before EMS, before cops, before anybody. And so he, came and stood with me. He's trying to keep me calm. There was the people who hit me were trying to get into it with us. And so he was trying to keep them away and get me taken care of because they were uninjured. So yeah, to kind of go from that, like the accident ended up being really, really bad. Both my ulna and my radius completely shattered, like not just broken, completely shattered. My fracture was open. I was going, like they were trying to get me into surgery as quickly as possible, but then obviously I'm pregnant, so they're trying to monitor the baby. They didn't know if I was bleeding. They didn't really know a whole lot just because there's so many things going on. I got into surgery for my arm within about 3 to 4 hours of the accident, and they only had to wait so long because I had actually eaten before I left my house, and they technically want to wait 6 hours, but they were like, we have to go like right now because she's also pregnant and we've got to stay on top of it. So I got that surgery. Went to a recovery room. They're still monitoring the baby. His heart rate had kind of been fluctuating, but it wasn't super concerning until like the nighttime, I guess. And I was also apparently contracting, but didn't know either. I was on pain meds too, so I had no idea. And they came into our room about 2:30 in the morning, like on the 3rd. So it was like 15 hours after the accident, and was like, yep, you're going to C-section right now. Like, and I was like, what's happening? Like, that's fine. Like, what's happening? And they're like, oh, his heart rate keeps dropping every time he contracts. So your doctor, wants to go ahead and take him. And at that point I was 30 weeks exactly. So that was super scary. I mean, I had never had surgery before my arm. I had never, other than like a fender bender, like I'd never been in a wreck. Obviously it's my first pregnancy. So it was like the most stressful, like 15 to 16 hours that day. And then he was born. Initially he was fine. He was a little jaundiced, but initially he was okay. They just wanted him to be more stable with his heart rate and stuff. So they didn't want me to continue contracting and it just get worse. So they still sent him to NICU. That was at like 3:30 in the morning is when he was born. By 6:30, that's like the first time I got to see him. Like I didn't get to hold him. I didn't get to touch him. Like they just showed him to me and then took him. I got to see him around 6:30 or 7, and it was like pretty scarring to see because I had not even got to like really see him. It was just, they wheeled him out as I was still being taken care of, post C-section, and like just to go into the room and he's got, nurses everywhere, doctors, lights, tubes, IVs, like you almost couldn't see him because there was just so much stuff on him. And then that was a Saturday. The Saturday was kind of just trying to figure out if he was okay. Like, I really didn't care about myself at that point. I was like, if y'all gonna end up taking my arm off, I really don't care. Like, I genuinely had come to terms if I needed an amputation. And they didn't even say that. It just became like, if that's really what you need to do, like, do that. And Saturday, there were just a lot of unknowns because they didn't know what was going on. Like, they kind of had guesses. Like, they did tell us pretty immediately they thought he had a stroke. Couldn't confirm it because you typically have to be hooked up on machines with, you know, data and stuff like that. Sunday morning, I was wheeled to the room because I couldn't walk or really anything. And then I was wheeled into the room Sunday, and all I see was like 4 or 5 like high doctors, like over the hospital, like over the whole NICU. Like, they were like 4 or 5 doctors in there, probably 6 or 7 nurses. And then, sorry, I'm probably gonna cry. My husband was sitting in the recliner that's in the room, just like his head in his hands, like bawling. And I was like, no. Like, I went to worst case scenario. I didn't know what happened because I still was admitted. I was having to be in my room to take medication. They were trying to check my vitals. I'd had 2 surgeries plus a car wreck, so they were trying to make sure nothing else was going to happen. So I was just getting to my room as much as people could take me. I couldn't even get there myself. So he's literally sitting there with his head in his hands, just bawling. And like, I know you know my husband, like, he's not that, like, I've seen him cry maybe 3 times since I've known him, and that's 6-7 years. And so I literally went up to him and I was like, I asked one of the nurses. It was actually really crazy. One of Kaysen's nurses was a friend from college. And I was like, what is happening right now? Because I couldn't even see Kaysen. Like, there were so many people in there. I couldn't even see him to figure out what was going on. And that's when they told us he had brain bleeds. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? Like, is that what's the extent of that? And they said in one side of his brain, it's a grade 3. And the other side, it looks like it's a grade 4. And it goes from 1, 2, 3 to 4, 4 being the worst. So he had a 3 in one side and a 4 in the other. And I was like, okay. And like, he's going to be fine. I really had I know that sounds kind of silly, like, but I was like, oh, he'll be fine. Like, you can fix it. I just didn't know the extent. And they said, we're going to have to send him to Gainesville because that's like, he needs surgery. And they said, honestly, he probably won't make it to Gainesville. And I couldn't even cry. I was like, I don't, like, what are you supposed to do with that information? Like, I thought he was okay. Because he kind of was. Like, the day he was born, like, there really wasn't a lot of signs of intense stuff. Like, they said they thought he might have had a stroke, but that's already done. Like, you can't really undo that. So really, it was just monitoring him. And then they straight up told us, like, we have to send him to Gainesville to their neuro team, and he probably will not make it there. And literally, I know people say that a lot, but like, that was the worst day of my life. Like, not even the accident, not, me having surgeries or him even being born early. It's just like that information when they tell you your child's probably going to die. Like, regardless of if he gets there or not, like, he's probably not going to make it, was the most, like, debilitated I've probably ever felt in my life. So we actually ended up calling Jacob Giles because he was our small group leader. Like, we had kind of been keeping him informed of just, whatever. And he, like, left church to come to the hospital. Like, my husband called him and was like, we need you. Like, we need you to be here. We don't know what to do. So he came up and he didn't even say anything to us. He just started crying. Like, we said, like, Kaysen has brain bleeds. Like, he's probably not going to make it. But other than that, we couldn't converse. Like, that's just, it was too fresh. Like, we didn't know what was really going to happen. And he didn't want to dig too deep. Like, he doesn't need to know. Like, he just started praying. And, Kaysen was very, very, very sick. Like, he ended up being in the NICU for 81 days. And within that 81 days, he coded 4 times. It was either 3 or 4. He would have what they call apneic episodes where, like, essentially just the baby stops breathing. Like, there's really no reason for it. A lot of times it's because they're preemie. He also was in a trauma. He had the brain bleeds, so they couldn't really stop it per se because it's things that happen because of prematurity and all these other things, and he had all of them combined. All that to say, that was like the very beginning. Just that was like the hardest time. Like probably the first month was the hardest time because he ended up having surgery on his head to help with the brain bleed. They put a device in so that they could extract the fluid so it wouldn't get too much pressure and just keep building up. He had that within the first 3 weeks, and that helped him a lot. Like they pulled enough fluid out to where it started getting lighter and lighter and lighter, and that's what you want. Like you don't want dark fluid. That means there's still active bleeds. And they really couldn't do anything about it at that time. By the way, he did not go to Gainesville. The neuro team here came in because of how bad it was. They were like, we can't even risk sending him to Gainesville. We'll just come in. Like they were all like, I don't know where they were, but they were just not there. And when they found out, they came in. So he thankfully didn't have to go to Gainesville. But they did end up putting in that device. And then back in December, they put in a permanent one that just drains that fluid automatically. So you're not having to manually pull it every time he needs something taken out. And those two, that December surgery helped him completely. Like it completely turned him around, like physically, developmentally, like, but going back to him being actually in the NICU, he had every single issue come up that could have come up. I mean, aside from the brain bleeds, obviously just being 10 weeks premature causes a lot of problems. And then it was because of a trauma. So you're still trying to figure out if other things are going to happen or come up, or you know, if he's going to be affected by other things. Like, I mean, he literally had every single issue, from heart problems, kidney problems, liver problems, intestinal problems. He had jaundice. His eyes had a lot of problems. Just like growing. He was so little. He was 4 pounds, but just, it's at times it genuinely felt like we were going to be there forever. Because it's like we would get one thing clear or fixed or, you know, whatever, and then something else would happen. And it was definitely the most trying time, the most difficult time, and also for me too, physically, because I had a C-section and an arm surgery, and I was in a cast for like 2 months, and I couldn't even get him out of the incubator without having help. So it's like I felt like a burden to other people because I was always like, hey, can you help me hold my baby? Like I felt like a burden to everybody. And I felt like a burden to my husband because he's trying to still work because we couldn't both be out of work. And then people were visiting us from out of state. Like people would come, you know, like you came a bunch. Like I just felt like I was being such an imposition to everybody. There was no reason for me to think that way. Nobody made me feel that way. It's just when something so insane like that happens, that's kind of just where your brain goes. It's like, well, everything I do is going to, like, is relying on somebody else, and that's putting them in an imposition. So it definitely, it puts it, that's what I was saying earlier, it puts things in perspective for you, because one decision that, you know, the person who hit me made, like, they just kind of, they came through like 4 lanes to try to get where they were going, and they just didn't stop or look. So it's like, even just thinking ahead and like, hey, how might this affect somebody if, you know, A, B, or C happens, or how might this hurt somebody, or, you know, whatever. I feel like I'm kind of all over the place. So if you need to reel me in, it's okay. But yeah, like after 81 days, he ended up being discharged. He got really good, like at the very end. Like he stopped having all the episodes. A lot of the stuff he grew out of just as he got older, which is kind of what we expected. But again, you still never know. And then he had the surgery, the second surgery in December. Again, that really helped him. And then he's been doing physical therapy and occupational therapy. But he initially went home with a disease in his kidneys, and that's not something that you typically grow out of. His kidneys were affected like pretty badly, and so he was on medication. He was diagnosed with diabetes insipidus, and it essentially just means that he needed help like processing things, and so that's why he was on medication. And they were like, yep, he'll be on this the rest of his life. Like, he'll just take this little bit of medicine twice a day, like, you know, which is pretty small compared to what it could have been.
Yeah.
And I was like, if he needs medicine, that's fine, like, not a big deal. Well, we went to the doctor for him a few months ago, and they had kind of been leaving his medication amount like the same. So even if you get bigger, like they're supposed to up it based on your weight, they had not been doing that because his kidney results and lab results had been coming back really good. So they're like, well, maybe if we can just keep it at this small amount, it'll kind of keep everything regulated, because medication also is like long-term can be harmful too. So they're trying to keep that, you know, as that risk as little as possible. And they actually looked at his labs after like 4 or 5 months of monitoring him. And they were like, yeah, we don't really know how to tell you this, but we don't think he has like DI anymore, diabetes insipidus. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, are we at the right doc? Like, it just was weird because he's supposed to have that, you know, the rest of his life. And they were like, no, like, his kidneys are functioning. They function about 90% compared to 100%, but they were like, that's not enough for us to say, like, he has DI anymore. So just to go from where he started and where he was and, like, all the things that he was going through to literally have something like that, like, essentially uncurable cured, I was like, wow, like, you cannot tell me that there's not a God. Like, you just, you cannot. Even if I obviously am a Christian, but even if I wasn't, like, you cannot tell me that that just mysteriously went away. And then just for him to be where he is now, like, he started laughing a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And that's in and of itself a milestone for any kid. But for him especially, it's just like, it just shows you the goodness of God and, like, the power of God, because in reality, me or Kason probably shouldn't be here. I mean, like, we were both on death's door. I didn't know how bad I was until a few months back when people, you know, were telling me, like, what all I had done in the hospital. Apparently, I had blood transfusions because I had bled out so much from my arm plus being pregnant. And I had no idea until a few months ago. So it was just like a really terrible time, but also a really, like, building time, because now I look back and it's like, yeah, I was in a really bad storm. I was in a really bad, you know, place, and to be where I am now, like, I'm going back to work Monday, and it's just like, I never really thought I'd even get to that point to where I'd be comfortable to do that, because I've just had so much anxiety or, you know, bitterness or anger or depression or, like, you know, whatever about every situation that happened. And now I'm to a point where it's like, yeah, like, he's okay. Like, he, you know, he is here. Like, that's all I can ask for, like, is for him to be here. So yeah, it was kind of long, but also the short version, because again, within that 81 days, I mean, every single day something came up, like, realistically, but it just, to see where he is now, and, like, people have no idea that anything happened to him. Like, they cannot tell, like, they don't know unless I say something, but they're like, yeah, you can't tell that, like, he went through all these things. And I think, again, that's just a testament to God. I mean, he, like, people don't view him as like a, what do you call it? Like a sob story. Like, they don't view him as like a, you know, it's just like, he's a miracle, and that's all you need to know. So now this is kind of the part where I said, I didn't know if I was going to say this or not, but I think this kind of gets lost a lot of times, especially in Christian circles. It's not necessarily looked down on. It's just like, don't say that. So my anxiety, even now, probably at an all-time high, just because for the first few months I couldn't get in a car. I couldn't. I was too scared. I was too anxious. I wouldn't leave Kason's side for more than a couple minutes. Like, I didn't eat because I didn't want to leave his side. So my anxiety got really bad. I got really bitter. I was very, very, very bitter in the very beginning, because I was like, why me? Like, why did I get laid off? Why did I, you know, have to go to this interview that I really didn't want anyway? But why did I have to still go? Like, why was it my son? Like, he's my first kid, and we actually struggled to get pregnant in the first place. So I was like, why? Like, everything was just why. I became very bitter toward certain people or just situations. I was very angry. And some of these happened together. Like, some things were, like I said, just happened together. Some things were in stages. Like, for 6 weeks, I'd be bitter. And another 6 weeks, I'd be angry or whatever. And I kind of went through cycles. And then I got to depression. that was probably the hardest part to go through, because you're not only dealing with potentially postpartum depression, but just depression because I felt like nothing I ever did was good enough. He would, especially last year out of the NICU, but before his second surgery, he still struggled a lot with a lot of things. And I was like, why did God even make me a mom if I can't be a mom? If I'm not good enough to be physically, I can't do anything for my kid. There was times I couldn't even pick him up because I was either in a cast or I had a second surgery on my arm in October. So it's like by the time I got to October to be able to even care for him, I had to have another surgery. So I just always felt like in a position to everybody because I physically needed help. Like I needed help going to take a shower. I needed help making a drink. Like I needed help doing everything. So I was like, why would God even make me a parent if I couldn't parent physically? And then I got really depressed because I felt like I hadn't really lost anybody, like friendship wise, but I became too depressed to want friendship. I was just like, I don't want to hang out. I don't want to leave my house. Because at that point we were still going to doctors every 4 to 6 weeks for him. And he had like 5 or 6 specialists plus therapy 3 times a week. So we would average 7 or 8 doctor's appointments every single week. And by the time I did all that, I was like, I don't want to hang out. I don't want to grab a coffee, or I don't want to get lunch. And I felt bad because those people are just trying to be there for me. And I appreciated it. I really did. Like, if you're watching it and you were one of those people, I really appreciate it because you probably saved my life, because there were so many times if maybe that one person hadn't just shown up to my house to like bring me a coffee or, whatever, I probably would have just sat there. Like, and I don't know if this makes any sense. It's just, it was so bad for such a long time. And I didn't really say anything because that's not who I am. Like, I'm a very bubbly, outgoing, people-y person. If you want to go do something at 4 a.m, I'll go. If you want to go at midnight, I'll go. Like, that's who I have been. And I became the person that wouldn't respond to text, didn't answer the phone, would tell people like I'm not going. Like, I don't want to go. So it was really weird because, again, just being in that position, I felt like a bad person. I felt like a bad friend, a bad mom, a bad wife, a bad daughter, like a bad aunt. I was like, I don't care. Like, I truly don't care just to do anything outside of get my son better, because that's the priority. And that got really so bad that I started going to counseling because, and I pushed myself way too far. And this is kind of where I say this might get lost sometimes in Christian circles, because, you're not supposed to deal with these things, like, just pray about it or, whatever. And I started going to counseling because I started having, if you need to edit it, but I started having suicidal thoughts. And it was never a thought of like, I'm going to actually go get something and do something. But it was, if I get hit again and I die, I don't care. Like I'm useless to my son. I'm useless to my husband. I'm useless to my friends. I can't do anything. I can't even do the laundry. Like, I can't keep it up. And so then, it's just the things that keep compounding each other. And I was like, I genuinely got to that point, and that's when I knew. I was like, I have to talk to somebody, because if I don't, that will occur. Mm-hmm. And you're one of the first people I told about that, because I knew you would understand. Sorry.
Can I just say, like, just to kind of give you a moment, thank you so much for sharing what you've shared. First off, that you are so brave for opening up and sharing. And I think I echo what you say when it comes to having these conversations at the table with Christians. To your point, I can tell you how many times I've had a conversation with someone and said, I'm struggling with this. And they're like, but why? Like, you have God, you have this. And they're right. Like, we know God is good. We know that it's good. But that doesn't mean that mental health isn't important. And it doesn't mean that, like, sometimes we need medicine. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we need therapy. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we need all of it. And that is okay.
Yeah.
And I wish that one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this podcast and God put this on my heart was I wanted to reach women where they're at, and I want them to know that they're not alone. And
Yeah.
if we're Christians and we're walking around pretending that we're okay, how are anybody ever going to make progress?
Right.
So you sharing shouldn't be a taboo. It should be the norm that we are all struggling with something, mental health, loss, whatever it is, our marriage, our finances, you name what we're struggling with, that should not be something that we are afraid to talk about. It should be something that we have women that are beside us, loving us, praying with us, lifting us up, encouraging us, beating the drum together in the Lord's name.
Yeah.
Not feeling like if I tell Megan what I'm struggling with, she's going to judge me. If that's how you feel, you're not in the right place.
Right.
You need to find a circle that you can wholeheartedly be that person. And we talked about this in the last podcast, but there's a time when you need to love someone when there's at and keep them accountable, correct? But there's also a time where you just need to meet that person where they're at because Jesus meets us where we're at.
And that's what I needed. I didn't need somebody to try to fix all my problems or to fix the situation I was in. I needed somebody to hear what I was saying. And I think that's why I came to you. I think you were the first one I told. Realistically, if anybody else even knew, it probably would have been my husband. But the person I genuinely sat down with and told was you. And that's another God thing. That's why we're both still here.
Yeah.
Because if you weren't here or if I wasn't here, I don't know where that could have gone. And I just needed somebody to hear me. That's all. I didn't need somebody. And again, this is going to sound taboo because a lot of times they're just oh, just open your Bible or just pray. And 100%, I've never abandoned my faith in this whole situation. But I needed somebody else to hold me up so that I could still be still be present in my faith.
Right.
And that's exactly what I tried to do and what others did for me. We were just at a random lunch. We just try to get together and sometimes it's few and far between, but that's okay. I just told her randomly at lunch. And it's well, okay, over this, Mexican food, I'm just going to tell you, I'm really struggling, but that's all I wanted. And going to counseling really got me in a better place because I finally was able to understand where a lot of these things were coming from. Obviously, on the surface level, it's well, yeah, you're in a wreck. Yeah, you suffered physically. Your son suffered physically. Your family as a whole suffered. Yeah, that's surface level. But I understood where my feelings were coming from, why I was feeling that way, why I became an angry individual, why I get set off a lot easier. And I still struggle with that stuff now. I have such a short fuse, and I hate saying that, but I do because I lost all control when the accident happened. I had no control over anything. I had no control over me getting better to an extent. Obviously, I was going to therapy and I had surgery, but I didn't have control over the fact that it happened in the first place. I didn't have control over my son getting better. I didn't have control over having a job because I didn't. I didn't have control over the insurance stuff. I just lost everything I had known. And that got me in such a deep well that I had a handful of people that I would reach out to and tell them specifically what I was going through, in detail. So for me to be able to say it now, I'm not out of the woods at all.
Right.
It's not something where you go to one counseling session or a month's worth, whatever, and it's okay, you're fixed. And by the way, in counseling, I don't just get the Bible hounded at me either. And again, taboo, and that sounds bad, but it's a Christian. It's somebody that's a Christian. I don't want to say who it is just for me, but
Yeah.
they are a Christian. I'm very close with their family, but it's not just something where they read the Bible to me for an hour either.
Right.
Emotions are a real thing. Mental health is a real thing. And it needs to be more normal. It's normal.
Right.
It's normal
100%.
to feel different things. God gave us free will, and he gave us ability to have those emotions, and it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be hurt. It's okay to feel you're not enough. It's not true because obviously God's word tells us other things, but that's still a reality. And like if you really are struggling with anything, I'm not saying you have to go to like a professional therapist, but even a counselor. Like a lot of times people at church, like, you know, pastors or stuff will do counseling or, you know, just whatever. If you want somebody that's a Christian, which I do recommend if you are a Christian, because that just obviously adds to the advice you're going to get.
Absolutely.
I do recommend that, but go talk to somebody, get a friend. Like one thing that my counselor advised me to do was have that group, like either 3 or 4 individuals or couples that you feel comfortable enough to text, call any time of day. You can tell them anything and you know that they're just going to be there for you. Again, you don't need somebody trying to fix your problems. You don't need somebody, well, you know, come over and, you know, we'll read, you know, whatever. Like, yes, I still want biblical advice, but it's just, again, it's just so taboo in Christian circles. And typically the answer is, well, I'll pray for you, read your Bible. Okay, thank you.
A lot of times Jesus' love isn't somebody sitting there spewing his word at you. It's meeting you where you're at, and it's showing the love of Jesus through you that oozes through you. And I think that we forget that too. We forget that that can also be overflowing and showing God's love. I think also what you said about we're not meant to do this alone. We're not called to do this alone. The Lord did not want us to do this alone. Hence why he made man and woman and helpmate together, right? But you're also supposed to have a community surrounded by you. Like, because when we do it alone and we isolate, that's where the devil wants us. He wants to isolate us. He wants to get in our head, and that's when he can. That's when he feels like he has control. And he doesn't have control because we have the Lord. We're never alone, right? But that being said, sometimes you do need other influential people in your life to continue to point you to the light and keep showing you the light, because they're in obedience to what God is saying for them to do on their life.
Right.
And their calling is to help you come alongside you in that season, right? So I think it's super important to have people. And we talk about community all the time. I think if you don't have community, like, here's a place to start. Like Megan and I know you would be too. Like if you're struggling with something and you need help with something, like DM us. We would love to pray with you. We'd love to help you. We'd love to point you in a direction, you know, to community. But I mean, I think that we've done this podcast now for months. And what keeps coming up, number one, you know, surrendering all to the Lord, right? Is if we're willing to trust him with our salvation, we got to trust him with everything. Because to your point, we can't control things.
Yeah.
He's the only one that can. He's the only one that can fix things. We can't fix it. Megan can't fix it. You can't fix it. Nobody can fix it but the Lord.
And you don't want to get to the point where I got to, where you lose all that control and then you have a meltdown.
Right.
Because that's what happened. Like I forgot that I wasn't in control and then lost it all. And then that's when I say crazy, but like my mental health really declined.
Spiraled, yeah.
So you do not want to get to that point before that happens. Like, find that
lifeline.
The lifeline, the little, it can be one person if you want, but tell that person, like, hey, I need you specifically for this. I'm going to tell you everything. If you're not comfortable with that, let me know. And I told her, I said, obviously we've known each other a really long time. That doesn't mean like
she can handle it.
I trusted her and like I knew she'd be okay with it, but I'm going to tell you everything. And I was so nervous to tell you that I had been having the suicidal struggle, because I was like, what if she, like, what if? I really didn't think she would like turn her back on me or anything, but that's not the Lauren she knows.
Yeah.
And I put so much pressure on myself to make myself that way, because everybody knows me as like fun and outgoing and crazy and silly and like. And I'm currently not that person anymore. And I hate it. But again, you have to find those people that you're comfortable enough to tell that information to. People that, I think it should be people that know you well. Because if you just choose people you know, but they don't really know you, if you say stuff like that, again, not your fault if it turns them off.
Right.
But you need somebody who's going to sit there in the fire with you.
That's right.
And sometimes that's just listening. And I think that sometimes we are so quick to say all the things that we think we should say, rather than sometimes you don't need to give anybody advice. You just need to listen to them wherever they're at. And, you know, I vividly remember sitting at the Mexican restaurant as you poured your heart out, and, you know, my heart broke because, and I think that's the importance of being vulnerable, is because, you know, I've been through those type of thoughts in my past. And, you know, it doesn't change, you know, as we go through tragedies and heartache and stuff, it does, like, it can change how we respond to things, how, you know, it can cause us to isolate ourselves. It can cause but it doesn't change you as a person. You're always going to be Aunt Lala. You're always going to be Lauren Ashley. You know, like, you're going to always be like my little sister. That's not my little sister.
Yeah.
I think it's so important sometimes, like, we want to be like, I want to tell you all these things, but I know at this moment you just need somebody to listen to you. And sometimes that's hard. Like,
we're women.
We're like
fixers.
I know.
Yep.
Here's the list of things you need. Yeah. Like, and that's sometimes it's like, nope, and because I know I'm quick to spit off an answer, but the thing I've been working on lately is just slow down and just be there in that
Quick
moment.
to listen, slow to speak.
I just pulled up James 1:19. I was like, I couldn't remember the reference. So, because we talked about that not that long ago, because we totally were butchering.
I got you. They got you.
The verse in class. We're like, yeah, it's like quick to speak, slow to hear, or so. Like, we're like, no. And we were like, no, that's totally wrong. So we're like, we looked at this is what it actually says.
Yeah.
And it is so important, like, to be able to have that people that you trust, that you know is going to just take your hand and hold you through it, just as the Lord does. And it's definitely not easy.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really, you kind of said this already, but, you know, when we talk about, like, how people don't believe in God, look at the puzzle pieces and the orchestration that had to have to bring you all together. And, like, Megan's story is very similar to yours with mental health. And you came to somebody that knew exactly how you were feeling.
Yep.
And
I didn't even know that. I probably...
You were there in the midst watching my babies when I was going through it, but I didn't. I was not.
No, you didn't tell me.
No, and I didn't tell anybody.
Right.
And because my how I was raised, like, in the community that we were raised in, we don't talk about feelings.
That's not a thing.
And so I'm like, that was like programmed into my mind, and so I'm like, I can't talk about this to anybody. It took a long time for me to even open it up to my husband about it. And, but I will say, the moment you just speak it, it is a step in healing.
That's right.
And sometimes that's the hardest first step to do, is just saying, this is where I'm struggling. I need help. I just need somebody to just be here with me, because I don't really know how to maneuver through all these emotions and thoughts and feelings. And I want direction, but right now I don't even have the motivation right now to take that step. But I need somebody just that's going to push me, but not like push me. If that makes sense, you know?
Well, and it's literally a mental weight. When I finally told you, I already felt more free from it, because somebody else knows that I know is not going to make me feel bad about myself. That you didn't come back with an answer.
I just said,
you didn't come back with a
eating
solution.
my chips and sauce.
but that's all I needed.
Yeah.
I just needed to tell you.
Yeah.
I told you before I told my husband, because I and it wasn't because I don't trust him, obviously.
Yeah. It's hard as women to admit, like, that
We need help.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the difference too was, like, you know, he's still working. He has his own stressors. Obviously, I'm a woman. He's a man. There's just a physiological difference there too. But I knew when I told him, I would have to tell him start to end, because I didn't just want him to think that I'm just sitting around the house taking care of our son alone and having these thoughts. I was like, no, that's not it. So when I did talk to him, I, in fullness, told him all the things of, like, why, how, you know, whatever. But with you, I literally just told. And again, you didn't try to fix it all. Like, you were just there as a friend, and that's all I needed. And I will say too, though, whenever, if you are struggling with, like, mental health and you do want to reach out to people, actually reach out, because I actually struggled to even tell anybody, to even send the text just saying, like, and by the way, again, super random, but you don't have to tell everybody everything, even your little group.
That's right.
Right.
Sometimes I would just send a text, I'm having a really crappy day.
Can you pray for me?
Just keep me in your thoughts.
Yeah.
Like, and they would say, got it. Love you. Like, that's all they would say. That's all I needed. I didn't need somebody to try to dig into what I'm going through, because they could probably guess. I mean, my situation, the stuff that happened last year was pretty public just because it went around a lot, which, again, not a bad thing. A lot of people did know, which kind of made it better because then I don't have to explain it all the time. But if you really do need, even if you're just having a bad day, please just tell somebody. It's okay. Like, and if they get annoyed, then move on to somebody else. But your close friend, or your close group shouldn't be the ones that will get annoyed with that. So be careful choosing that.
Yeah.
But also, let them know, like, hey, sometimes I'm just having a bad day.
Yeah.
It's not in a crazy, state yet, but like, I just needed to let you know.
That's good.
One thing we do like to ask is if there was any just scripture or Bible verses that like the Lord pressed on your heart that you clung to during, these rough days.
Yeah. So the one verse is a pretty like familiar verse. I actually like clung to a song, and I'll tell you what it is. But the verse that just was always in my head, I didn't even need to like crack my Bible 90% of the time, because I've been raised in church since in the womb. So like thankfully I do have scripture in my head where I don't need to go search for it. I have it. But the one that came up a lot and that would just be in my head is Philippians 4:6-7. Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. And I was like, you know what? That's not even funny, Lord, because I'm dealing with like physical issues because of all this stuff. But then it's like, it's talking about keeping your mind in Christ too. And I was like, great. You just like, create one verse to cover all of our, ailments. And I was like, but honestly, like I really got a lot of peace from that verse.
It was the voice of the Lord.
Voice, yeah. Because also verse 6, it says, let your requests be made known. He doesn't say, only let these be known. Only tell me if A, B, and C happens. It's like, let them be known. And a lot of times I didn't call it praying. I was just talking to God a lot because I had nothing else that I could do to try to fix the situation. So again, when I realized I couldn't fix it, it was like, okay, like I just have to talk to God like I would talk to anybody else. And then, yeah, sorry, I got distracted.
We lost a camera. We can be real.
It's okay.
It's okay. She's still talking. She's still here. We're still here.
Yeah, we're good.
It's fine.
I have a really short attention span.
It's okay.
So yeah, I just would talk to God and like, hey, I know you already know, just help me out.
Yeah.
It wasn't super formal. It wasn't, me getting on my hands and knees in the hospital. It was just like, please, I need help. I don't know how else to ask. So that verse specifically really helped. When I didn't have words or when a serious, like more serious issue or, thing came up with Kaysen, the song by Katie Nicole, In Jesus' Name, I would just play it in the room. Like on speaker. I didn't care who heard me. I didn't care about anything else. I just played it. And this will probably make me cry too, but it says, I speak the name of Jesus over you in your hurting, in your sorrow, which the hurting kind of went to Kaysen. The sorrow kind of went to me because that's kind of where we both were in that moment. It says, I will ask my God to move. And it says, in desperation, I will seek heaven and pray this for you. And then I think it's just like the second, chorus. It says, I pray for your healing, that the circumstances would change. And I pray that the fear inside you would flee in Jesus' name. I pray that a breakthrough would happen today. And I pray miracles over your life in Jesus' name. I probably played that 1,000 times. That was just when I didn't know what else to do. And that was so comforting to me because even in the moments, the worst moments, it was a constant reminder, like, God is in charge. He's made it another day, or he's made it another hour, or he made it through ABC situation, it was such a good, just again, reminder that God is truly in control. And obviously we see that a lot more now, and just where Kaysen has gotten to. But yeah, sometimes it's not always like it can be a verse. Like for me, it was both, but sometimes it's a song, or sometimes, it might be a poem that, or sometimes like, it doesn't have to be a Bible verse that pulls you through something. Like sometimes it's just knowing God's presence is there. And like, if he speaks to you through a song or, whatever. So.
Yep. Absolutely. We like to do a segment called, You Got This, because I'm going to mess it up.
Moment at the well.
Moment at the well. A pivotal moment where you feel like God really met you where you were at. And it could have been something that you already have done, something that you've already shared with us, but where he kind of really just like met you exactly where you were at. Did I do that right? Mm-hmm. Okay. We're losing all the cameras.
They're slowly going.
Shout out to Mike. Thanks so much for running around in behind the scenes trying to turn on cameras when they're getting lost.
That's God's way of telling me to be quiet, because I talk a lot.
That's the devil trying to get into this and say this shouldn't be shared because this is going to be used to help somebody.
Yeah, perspective. Honestly, probably when I actually made the physical decision to go to counseling, that first session, it got me. I think I just cried like 75% of the session, but that's what it kind of took for me to see like where God has brought us, and me specifically, and that all the mental health issues are normal. Like I went through a trauma, and that there's going to be continued trauma potentially the rest of my life. Like I don't know if I'll deal with that the rest of my life, but it doesn't just go away overnight. So I think when I genuinely made the decision to actually reach out to somebody in a more professional setting and go to counseling is kind of when I felt my relationship with God get a lot better. Because I wouldn't say it diminished or anything before, because God was all I had in those moments, but it was a more, like I didn't know what I needed from God, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When I went to counseling, I found out what I needed. So I think that's probably when it became more real.
You got any more questions?
I don't think so, because I think if I talk anymore, I'll probably cry again. But I genuinely just, when I'm proud of you, to see the growth in you. Like it's, sometimes it's like when you know somebody, like when they're a little teeny bopper.
Oh gosh, I was annoying.
But like to see you and how you have grown into such a beautiful woman that loves the Lord, a amazing wife, an amazing mother. I saw how you love my kids, and Kaysen is such a blessed little boy, and the cutest little boy. But I just thank you for being honest and vulnerable, and for sharing your heart, because I think, like you said, it's been taboo.
Yep.
But it shouldn't be. And we should be able to be real and raw and meet people just as the Lord does where they're at, and be that friend and that light and encouragement to them.
That's good.
And just, I will say too, just because I shared that doesn't mean that I'm not completely removed from all the mental health things. That's a continuous battle. But two, don't be scared to talk to people either that you know are struggling with that, because you don't want to set them off. Honestly, your minuscule or whatever conversation you want to have with them might be the thing that they need that day.
Yeah.
So stopping somebody in the hall, or just saying hey to somebody at church, or like, sending them a text, just be like, have a great day. Like, don't be scared to do that. Like, I don't think that would set somebody off, especially if it's a more positive thing. Now, don't take all your problems to somebody else that's struggling like 10 times worse than you maybe, but again, like just don't completely shut people out because you know that they're dealing with that. And I don't worry about that. Like I know that my circle is like strong and like that's, you know, what matters. But I also know there's other people, like we haven't really met, but I'm comfortable with you. Like I don't feel like I'm being looked at differently. And like, I know we're still going to have conversations that like, I hope we can build a friendship because I think that this podcast is a really like good eye opener for a lot of people. And it just needs to be a more honest place where you can say things. And especially again, like in Christian circles, it's not always taboo to say those kind of things.
Yeah. So. No, that's good. And I echo what Megan says. Like, I'm super thankful that you're willing to come on here. And to your point, like, you don't know me. And this was a big step to, like, come and share your heart with someone that you don't know. And I'm the first one to tell Megan, like, how we met. I looked at her, I was like, I need friends. You want to be my friend?
Yeah.
Like,
That's literally what she said.
So, absolutely. I mean, this is just the start of what God brought us together for a reason. And I'm excited to see where that goes. And any friend of Megan is a friend of mine, and I don't look at you any differently. In fact, I look at you as a very strong woman who is beautiful and kind and smart and a great mom, and just super happy to have you on our podcast.
Well, thank you. I really enjoyed it. You can cut all the parts where I just talk and ramble and, you know, whatever. But and to everybody who does listen, like I'm open. Send me a message if you need something. Like, I know that probably sounds weird in retrospect, but I can be that, I will be that person for you. I'm not going to try to fix it because I know exactly what that feels like to have somebody try to fix it. I can be an ear. I'll just, you know, heart your message or say, okay, love you. Like, have a great day. Like I am 100% comfortable if you need somebody. Like I am fine, like with you reaching out. So.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for being open.
Of course.
Thank y'all for tuning in. Sorry about some of the technical difficulties of losing some cameras, but again, I will say a huge shout out to my husband who does this out of the kindness of his heart. He doesn't have to do this, and he sits here and he loves us, and he is the doer of all things. So thank you to him. I will say, if you're struggling with mental health and you need help, please reach out. Megan and I will not judge you. We will help in the best ability that we have. We have pastors on staff. What Lauren was saying, and they can help too. So reach out to us if you need help. We're here, and we'd love to pray for you. So if you have a prayer request, send it. We'll pray. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next episode. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
It's a brand new day.